50 years had passed since the ships arrived over Earth. The massive vessels came without warning, their shadow covering entire cities. No one fought back. There was nothing humanity could do against weapons that could destroy mountains with a single blast. Hayes was only 12 years old when the conquest happened. He remembered the day the sky turned black. He remembered his mother holding him tight, whispering that everything would be all right, even though she knew it would not be. Now, at 62, stood in the darkness of the underground tunnels beneath 442B, the colony that had once promised freedom. That promise was dead, just like his wife. The tunnels were cold. Water dripped from the ceiling in steady rhythm, marking time like a broken clock. Moved through the darkness with a small light, his footsteps echoing against the stone walls. Around him, 20 resistance fighters waited in the shadows. They were young, most of them born under rule. They had never tasted real freedom. They only knew the rules, the curfews, the harvest taxes that took 1 in every 5 humans for deep space labor. Found him at the tunnel's entrance, breathless from running. She was 34 now, tall like her mother with the same determined eyes. She had her father's stubborn mouth. "Father, we need to talk," she said, pulling him into a smaller side passage. "I know what you're going to say," replied. "Do you? They are moving everyone, all 200,000 of us. The transports arrive in 12 days. Closed his eyes. He had suspected this was coming, but hearing the words made it real. They had no use for a colony that could not produce enough wealth. There were other worlds, other places where humans could be worked harder, broken faster. 442B was being emptied. "How certain are you?" he asked. "I have access to the administrative files. I translated the orders myself. The colony will be sealed. Everything of value will be stripped. The people will be distributed across 5 deep space mining stations. They plan to separate families on purpose. They do not want us to have anything to hold on to." Said nothing. This was the moment he had been preparing for his entire life. The moment when waiting ended and acting began. Continued, found a way to disable the monitoring system. Not the whole system, just the section covering the command station complex. He says he can keep it down for 24 hours if we move fast. 24 hours is all we have. To do what exactly? To steal the encryption codes, to access the archives, to break their hold on us. Looked at his daughter. She was so young. The weight of what he was about to ask her to do would change her forever. It would change all of them. "People will die," he said. "People are already dying," answered. "Slowly, in the mines, in the labor camps, under the pressure of taxes and rules. At least if we fight, we choose how we die. We choose when. We choose for what reason." Placed a hand on her shoulder. "Your mother said something similar to me the day before they took her." His jaw tightened. She had been only 4 years old when her mother was selected for the harvests. She barely remembered her face. They walked deeper into the tunnels. Around a corner, they found Porter working on a complex device made from salvaged tech. He was 30 years old, with the kind of brilliant mind that should have made him valuable in a free society. Instead, they wasted his talent on simple repair work, keeping colonial systems functional. "It is ready," said without looking up. "The virus code will insert cleanly. They will not suspect anything for at least 6 hours after we run it. That gives us time to extract the data and get to the safe house." "And if they catch us?" asked. Finally looked up. His eyes were clear. "Then we fail, and in 7 days humanity fails too, so we do not get caught." Sat down on a stone block. The burden of leadership was heavy. He had spent 20 years building the resistance, 20 years waiting for the right moment. He had gathered people, stored supplies, learned everything he could about technology. All of it had been moving toward this single moment. "We move tonight," he said, and exchanged glances. This was real now, not a plan, not a hope, real. The resistance gathered in the main chamber, 30 fighters in total. Some were old, men and women who had experienced freedom before the conquest. Most were young, born into servitude. None of them had military training. They had guns taken from patrols, and they had desperation. Sometimes desperation was enough. Stood before them. He did not shout. He did not make grand speeches. He spoke plainly, the way his wife had taught him to speak to people when you wanted them to understand something true. "They are taking us away from this colony. They will separate us. They will work us to death in the mines. In 12 days, our chance to act dies with them. Tonight, we take that chance. Tonight, we fight for something that matters. Not all of us will survive. That is the truth. We will lose friends, maybe even family. but the price of freedom is paid in sacrifice. I will not ask any of you to do this. You choose, but those who choose to fight, fight with full knowledge of what this costs. Raise your hand if you are with me. Every hand went up. Even the trembling ones, even the young ones who were terrified, they understood. Freedom did not come free. As the fighters began to prepare their weapons and equipment, moved to her father's side again. The command station hung in orbit above 442B like a metal fist suspended in the darkness. Had studied its design for months, but seeing it in person made his heart race. The station was massive, easily 2 kilometers across, studded with weapons and sensor arrays. One small human resistance team against all of that. The odds were impossible. The shuttle they stole was old, a maintenance vessel with its identification codes rewritten by clever hands. It approached the station as if it belonged there, sending the correct transponder signals. Sat in the pilot's seat beside him, hunched over a portable computer in the cargo hold. 7 fighters lay hidden in the storage compartments, quiet and still. "They are accepting our docking request," reported. She was reading the communications in real time through the headset had given her. Her was flawless, learned through years of working as a translator for the colony administration. She had always hated the work, translating orders that would hurt her own people, but now that hatred had a purpose. The shuttle touched down in the maintenance bay, the magnetic clamps engaged. Everything went according to plan, which meant remained tense. Plans were fragile things. Reality was harder than plans. The 7 fighters emerged from the cargo hold. They wore stolen maintenance uniforms. From a distance, in the dim light of the bay, they might pass as standard repair crew. From close up, the lie would shatter. They had to move fast. Broke away from the group, heading toward the nearest access terminal. Went with him. She would provide cover if anyone questioned his presence. And the 5 remaining fighters moved deeper into the station, heading for the central archive. The corridors of the station were cold and clean. Everything was made of the same gray metal, everything curved in the same alien way. The few they passed barely glanced at them. Maintenance staff were invisible. The powerful never truly see the people who keep their systems running. They reached the archive chamber without incident. It was smaller than expected, a single room with multiple server columns linked by cables that glowed with pale blue light. A single technician sat at a control station, monitoring readouts on a holographic display. Raised his weapon. "Do not move," he said in careful, accented. The technician froze. The alien turned slowly, its 4 eyes widening in surprise. It was a young one, thought, though he could never truly judge age. The alien's skin was pale purple, its body elongated. "You are not authorized to be here," the technician said. "No," agreed, "I am not." Emerged from behind them, her own weapon steady. The technician's surprise turned to something like resignation. The young seemed to understand that resistance was pointless. "What do you want?" it asked. "We need the encryption codes, the ones that control the neural command network, and we need the historical database, everything the collective has recorded for the last 4,000 years. The technician laughed. It was a strange sound, like wind moving through metal pipes. "You cannot access that data. It is locked. Only the command council has the codes." "Then you will give them to us," said. "No, I would rather die." Stepped forward and hit the technician with the stock of her weapon. The alien fell hard, felt something turn in his chest, some part of his conscience that objected to this violence. He pushed it down. War meant doing things that would haunt him. His voice came through the headset. "I am in the main computer system. Give me time." Seconds stretched like hours. Every moment expected alarms to sound. Every shadow seemed to hide a guard. Kept her weapon on the unconscious technician. The 5 fighters watched the chamber entrance, tense and ready. Then something unexpected happened. A new entered the chamber. This one was younger than the technician, with patterns of brighter color on its skin. It looked at the unconscious, then at and. "You are human," the newcomer said. It was not a question. "And you are making a mistake if you try to stop us," said, raising her weapon. "No," the said. It held its hands open, palms forward. "I am here to help you." And exchanged a quick glance. This was either brilliant luck or a trap that would kill them all. "My name is," the young continued. "I have been waiting for the human resistance to make its move. Your father taught me something about freedom, human. Many of us have been waiting for someone to stand up and fight back." Why demanded? Because the collective is wrong. It has been wrong for 40,000 years. We have conquered 312 civilizations. We have destroyed them all or enslaved them or broken them into pieces. I have read the records. I have seen what we have done. It is evil. I want no part of it anymore. Came back on the headset. I have the files, all of them, the encryption codes, the historical records, everything. I am transferring them to our portable drives now. Nodded as if he had expected this. The command council will know something happened within the hour. You need to leave now. Why should we trust you? Asked. Because my people are waking up, said. We are beginning to see what we have done, but most of us are still asleep. You humans have to help us wake up. That is why I am helping you. The data transfer completed. His voice returned. We have everything, moving to extraction point now. The team moved quickly through the corridors. Behind them, alarms finally began to sound. Red lights flashed. The station shuddered slightly as weapons systems activated. Ran with them, guiding them through passages only a would know. They reached the shuttle bay as security forces were moving into position. Provided covering fire with his own weapon, giving them the seconds they needed to board. Come with us, said to the young. I cannot, replied. Not yet, I have more work to do here, but we will meet again. When the whole galaxy is ready to rise up, we will meet again. The shuttle lifted away from the docking bay. Behind them, the command station grew smaller. On its screens could see military vessels beginning to respond, moving to intercept. But they had distance now. They had time. We did it, breathed. We started something, corrected. We did not finish it. Pulled up the historical files on the portable screen. What she saw made her face go pale. Father, look at this. The collective has conquered 312 civilizations, every single one of them eventually fell or was destroyed. There is a pattern. They always collapse in the end, but it takes centuries. Millions of people die. Looked at the data. The weight of it crashed down on him. Humanity was not the first. They would not be the last, unless something changed. Unless someone stood up and fought back hard enough to break the cycle. The encrypted messages went out across the galaxy on frequencies that should not have been accessible to humans, had used the codes to open channels that had been closed to everyone else. The messages were simple. They were written in multiple languages, translated and transmitted to every enslaved world the collective ruled. This is haze, they began. Humanity is preparing to strike. We are going to attack the command hub that controls the military. We are asking you to rise up. We are asking you to fight for your freedom. The responses came back slowly at first, then faster and faster. The warlord named was the first to answer. There were a warrior species, strong and aggressive, and that had conquered them 2,000 years ago. His message was brief: count us in. We have 20,000 fighters ready to move. The crystalline entities came next. They did not speak in words, but in mathematical patterns and had to decipher. What they said was shocking. They had been analyzing weapons for centuries. They could provide technical specifications for weapons that would turn the tide. The Aran traders, a merchant species that had been forced into subservience, opened their supply networks. They would provide ammunition, armor, medical supplies, food, whatever the rebellion needed. One by one, species that had lived under oppression for hundreds or thousands of years answered the call. Some sent military support. Some offered intelligence. Some simply sent hope in the form of messages that said, "We believe you can win. We believe we can be free." But not everyone supported the idea. In the war room beneath 442B, a man named David Park stood up to challenge. "We should focus only on freeing ourselves," David said, his voice hard. "We send soldiers to help other species. We are throwing away our own strength. We are sacrificing humans for aliens. I will not accept that." The room went quiet. David was respected. He had been fighting the longer than almost anyone else. His objection carried weight. "If we free ourselves and leave the collective intact, they will rebuild," replied. "They will return here or to another colony. The cycle will continue. We will trade one oppression for another." "That is not our problem." "It is our problem because we are human," said. She stood beside her father, her voice steady. "We are the species that learned thousands of years ago that the only way to live with freedom is to extend it to others. We fought wars with each other about this. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we learned that freedom is stronger than oppression. Now we know something they have forgotten, that knowledge is our real strength. David looked at her. You are naive. Maybe, said, but I would rather be alive and naive than dead and cynical. Something shifted in the room. The younger fighters, those born into slavery, began to nod. They had nothing to lose. They were already slaves. The chance to fight for something bigger than themselves was worth the risk. David left the war room. He did not return. Threw himself into preparing the colony for war. The occupation had nearly broken humanity's spirit, but it had not destroyed the human capacity for resistance. People came forward to help. Former soldiers began to teach fighting techniques to those who had never wielded weapons. Engineers worked to manufacture explosives. Doctors set up makeshift medical stations. Trained alongside everyone else. Her job at the administrative center gave her knowledge of military patterns and weakness points. She shared everything she knew. She became not just a translator, but a strategist, helping to plan attacks that would cause maximum damage. On the 12th day, received a message from. The message came through a secure channel that the young had set up. It carried dangerous intelligence. A commander named had discovered the resistance activity, was moving closer to the location of their main hideout. He would find them in 2 days. But included something else, a personal message. Tell Hayes that I have spoken with others who think as I do. We are more than you know. The collective is breaking apart. Many of us question what we have done. Some of us will resist orders if they ask us to do something that contradicts what we now believe. I cannot promise how many. But when the time comes, remember that not all are your enemies. Showed the message too. He is taking a huge risk, said. As are we all, replied. On day 14, the first coordinated attack across the galaxy was launched. They struck a military installation near there. Ships exploded. Weapons were captured. The news spread across all the rebel channels. The sabotaged power facilities on 3 separate worlds. Darkness fell on strongholds. Systems that had been running for centuries went offline. The errand traders launched coordinated attacks on supply convoys. Food, weapons, and equipment meant for forces were seized and redirected to the rebellion. The military responded, but it was stretched too thin. The collective had grown used to dominating enemies from a position of complete superiority. They had not fought a coordinated, multi-world rebellion in thousands of years. They did not know how. In the underground war room on 442B, gathered his commanders. Tomorrow we attack the command hub, he said. We will plant the cascade virus that created. It will degrade their neural network over 72 hours. In that time, the Allied forces across the galaxy will continue to strike. Without coordination, the military will fall apart. He paused, looking at the faces of the fighters. So many of them were young. So many of them might not see tomorrow. What we are about to do is not just for us, continued. It is for every species that the collective has enslaved. It is for every freedom that has been crushed. The cost will be high, but the cost of staying slaves is higher. The cost of letting this system continue is unbearable. Stepped forward. We will win, she said simply. Not because we are stronger than not because we have better weapons. We will win because we have something they have lost. We have the will to be free. We have each other, and we have hope. The fighters cheered. It was not the desperate, hopeless sound that slaves made. It was the sound of people who had decided their fate. It was the sound of rebellion. The shuttle bay of the command station was filled with alarms. The infiltration team had only minutes before security forces locked down the entire structure. Moved through the corridors with, and at his side, 3 soldiers following close behind. The other 4 fighters were engaged in a running battle near the main reactor, buying them time. How much longer? Asked. 90 seconds, I am almost through the last firewall, said. His fingers flew across the portable terminal he carried. Sweat ran down his face. They had reached the quantum core, the heart of the neural command network. It was a chamber filled with massive machines that hummed with energy. The walls glowed with soft blue light. It was beautiful in a cold, inhuman way. Did not appreciate the beauty. He appreciated only that it was here and that they could access it. Behind them, they heard the sound of weapons firing. Screams followed. One of the soldiers had brought was named, had been born into slavery. This was his first real fight. He would not see another. We have them, said, planting the virus now. Are you sure it will work? Asked. No, said, but I am certain their system will not be able to identify it for at least 6 hours, maybe 12. After that, the cascade effect will be gradual. The neural network will start to degrade. It will not fail all at once. It will fail in pieces randomly, making it impossible to fix quickly. They will have to shut everything down and rebuild. That will take weeks. Watch the progress bar on the screen crawl forward. 30%, 40%. A commander rounded the corner. It was. His weapon was raised, and his face showed the kind of determination that meant he would fire. "You cannot win," said. "You are primitive. You do not understand what you are trying to destroy." "No," agreed, "but we understand what it destroyed. That is enough." Weapon came up, moved forward, placing herself between her father and the commander. She did not raise her weapon. She simply looked at, her eyes steady. "There are who question what the collective has done," said Imperfect. "Told us this. He told us that you might be one of them." Froze, the weapon stayed raised, but his arm began to tremble. "The collective has enslaved 311 civilizations," continued. "Thousands of years of conquest, millions of deaths. At what point does that become evil? At what point do you stop and say this is wrong?" "I am bound by duty," said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "Duty to what?" asked. "To a system that destroys everything it touches. We choose a different duty. Duty to the living, duty to freedom, duty to stopping the cycle." 70%, 80%. "If you fire that weapon, you stop nothing," said. "The cascade virus is uploading. In 6 hours, your neural network begins to fail. Your military is already being attacked across the galaxy. They are fighting. They are striking. The errands are cutting your supply lines. It is over, Commander, not because we are strong, but because we are right." Lowered his weapon. For a moment, thought the commander would stand aside and let them pass. Then turned and fired on the approaching security forces. The shots were accurate. They cut down 2 soldiers who had been moving to intercept. Go said to, "I will delay them." 90%, 95%. "What about you?" asked. "I have already betrayed my people," said. His voice was resigned. "I might as well do it properly. I will tell them that you overwhelmed us. I will delay the discovery of the virus. Go." 100%. Pulled his hands away from the terminal. "It is done. We move now or we die here." They ran. Behind them, they heard weapons fire. They heard speaking in calm, measured tones to his officers, telling them lies that would buy the resistance time. By the time the command realized what had happened, the virus would already be embedded in their systems. The fight to escape the station was fierce. Was in the lead, running through corridors he had memorized from stolen blueprints. A soldier stepped into their path, did not hesitate. She fired. The alien fell. The weight of that action would stay with for the rest of her life. Taking a life. Knowing you had taken a life. It changed something inside her, hardened something that perhaps needed hardening. They reached the shuttle bay with seconds to spare. The shuttle was still there. Had made sure of that, programming it to remain in standby. They threw themselves inside as weapons fire scorched the metal hull. The shuttle disengaged and raced away from the station. On the screens, they could see interceptor craft launching to pursue them. "Hold on," the pilot said. He dropped the shuttle into a steep dive toward the atmosphere of 442B. The interceptors followed but peeled away as the heat became too intense. The shuttle's hull glowed red. Alarms screamed, but they were going down toward the planet, toward home. They crashed hard in a canyon outside the colony. The shuttle was damaged beyond repair, but it had brought them home. Meanwhile, on the surface of 442B, the resistance began its assault on the Colonial Administration Center. The there had received no orders for 6 hours. Their communications with the command station were garbled and incoherent. They did not know what was happening. The resistance fighters moved through the streets of the colony in a coordinated attack. They had been preparing for this for 20 years. Every target had been studied. Every weak point identified. The fighting was brutal. 2,000 humans died in the assault. Families who had lived under oppression for their entire lives stood up and fought back. Children who had never known anything but slavery suddenly had a chance to decide their own fate. Some of the defenders chose not to fight. This message, passed through channels by, had reached some of them, not all, but some. By dawn, the administration center had fallen. Broadcast a message across all colony frequencies. It was transmitted simultaneously to every allied world in the galaxy. The command structure is failing, she said. Her voice was steady, though her hands shook. The neural network that controls their military is degrading. They are no longer coordinated. They are no longer unified. This is our moment. This is when we claim our freedom, but freedom is not free. It is paid for by those who are willing to bleed. It is bought with the sacrifice of people who decided that some things are worth dying for. Honor those who have fallen. Build something better from their sacrifice. Build a galaxy where slavery is memory. Build a world where freedom means something. The message was heard across 300 worlds. Every enslaved species heard it. The cascade had begun. For 72 hours, the military system failed by degrees. Ships lost coordination. Weapons systems misfired. Orders could not be relayed. The most powerful force in the galaxy suddenly became nothing but scattered pieces. In that moment of weakness, dozens of civilizations struck with everything they had. The rebellion that had started in the darkness of a human resistance movement became an avalanche. The collective began to crumble. Porter did not live to see the final victory. He died at the moment when the virus uploaded successfully, taking shrapnel through his chest from a blast. His last act ensured that the Cascade virus would complete its upload and corrupt the system beyond immediate repair. 6 months had passed since the fall of the collective. The galaxy was still struggling to understand what had happened. A force that had dominated for 40,000 years was gone, not destroyed completely. That was not how the universe worked, but broken, fractured, no longer able to impose unified rule across the stars. The Galactic Peace Council met on neutral ground, a space station that had been built specifically for this purpose. Representatives from 56 different species sat around a vast table. The Warlord, the crystalline entity that communicated through mathematical patterns, the Aaron traders, and Hayes, representing humanity, sat behind her father, ready to provide translation or counsel if needed. She had become more than a translator now. She had become a voice for the new humanity, the species that had awakened others to the possibility of rebellion. "We must establish rules," said the representative of a species that had been enslaved for 2,000 years. "We must make sure that what happened to us never happens again." "Agreed," said. His accent was harsh, but his words were clear. "No single power will be allowed to dominate. Military forces will be regional, coordinated through a council of equals. Invasion will be met with unified resistance." The communicated its support through complex equations that the translation AI converted into words. Mutual defense is the path to peace. No single species strong enough to conquer the rest. Listened but said nothing. He had learned that sometimes listening was better than speaking. Leadership meant knowing when to talk and when to listen. A message came through to the council chamber. It was marked urgent and coded with encryption. The chamber fell silent as everyone waited for it to be translated. The message was from the collective had fractured. Some wanted to continue the old ways, to rebuild the military and reclaim their power. Others demanded a complete reformation of their society. A civil war was beginning to tear the civilization apart. "What do we do?" asked the Aaron representative. "Do we intervene? Do we allow them to destroy themselves?" All eyes turned to. "They enslaved us," said carefully. "They killed millions of us. They took everything from us. Many here lost more than I did. But I ask you this, if we watch them destroy themselves, do we become like them?" "They would have done it to us," said. "Yes," agreed. "But are we them? Are we going to build our freedom on the graves of a whole species, or are we going to build it on something different?" Felt something shift in the room. The anger that had powered the rebellion was still there, but something else was growing alongside it. Hope, maybe, or just the beginning of wisdom. "I propose," continued, "that we send humanitarian aid to we send mediators. We offer a path to reformation, not occupation, not punishment, but the chance to build something new." The representative looked at as if he had gone mad. "They enslaved your people. You would help them." "Yes," said simply. "Because if we do not, we prove that the cycle of hatred and vengeance is unbreakable. We prove that power is all that matters. But if we show mercy, if we offer redemption, then we prove something different. We prove that there is another way." The council voted. It was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The decision was made. The United Galaxy would offer aid and mediation to with the goal of helping them rebuild their civilization on principles of freedom instead of conquest. Later that evening, received a private message. It was from The young was on his, working with others who shared his vision. The Reformation was possible, wrote. There were who wanted to change, who wanted to atone for what their civilization had done. They would accept the Council's offer of aid. You gave us something, wrote. You gave us the chance to be better than we were. That is a gift we will not forget. Read the message twice, he showed it to. Do you think they will succeed? Asked. I do not know, said, but they will have the chance to try. 2 weeks later, and visited the memorial site on 442B. It was a simple stone structure with the names of all the humans who had died fighting for freedom. Porter's name was carved there in large letters. So were the names of thousands of others. Placed her hand on her father's shoulder. What are you thinking? She asked. I am thinking about your mother, said. I am thinking about what she would have wanted. I think she would have wanted us to remember that freedom is not just about us. It is about everyone. Your mother taught me that before the conquest. She believed that humanity was meant to be something good in the universe, not because we were stronger, but because we chose to be good. They stood in silence for a long time, looking at the names. What happens now? Asked finally. Now, said, we rebuild the colony, we help the other species rebuild. We create a galaxy where children will grow up knowing freedom. We do something that the never did, we choose to build instead of conquer. Looked at her father. He was old now. The weight of all he had carried, all he had decided, all he had sacrificed for was visible in the lines of his face. But his eyes were clear. They held the light of a man who had done what needed to be done. A week later, stood before a massive gathering on the surface of 442B. 50,000 humans were present, along with representatives from allied species. A warrior stood beside an entity. Errand traders mixed with human merchants. The sky above was full of ships from every corner of the galaxy. Had been chosen to speak because she represented something the liberation had created. She was the daughter of the old world, born into slavery, but she had helped build the new world. Her voice carried weight. We are here to celebrate freedom, began. Her words were simple, but they carried the truth of everything that had been fought for. We are here to remember those who paid the price. We are here to promise that their sacrifice will not be forgotten and that their deaths will give birth to something better. She paused, looking out at the crowd. The collective ruled for 40,000 years. For 40,000 years they crushed hope. But hope is not something that can be crushed forever. It grows back. It returns. It inspires. My father taught me that. Porter taught us that. Every person who died for freedom taught us that. His voice grew stronger. We will build a galaxy where that never happens again. Not because we are strong enough to prevent it, but because we are wise enough to choose something different. We will build a galaxy based on cooperation, not conquest. On shared defense, not domination. On freedom for everyone, not just for the powerful. She looked directly at the camera, knowing the message was being transmitted across every world in the Alliance. To those who still suffer under the last remaining oppressive systems, your liberation is coming. Not because invaders will free you, but because the galaxy has learned that freedom is contagious. Once one people rises up, others follow. The cascade has begun. It cannot be stopped. Your time is coming. As she spoke those final words, thought about her father, about the thousands who had died. She thought about the cost that freedom demanded, and she accepted that cost, knowing it was the only price worth paying. That night, as the celebrations continued, stood alone on a cliff overlooking the colony. The twin moons of 442B hung in the sky above him. The light they cast was silver and peaceful. A figure approached. It was the commander who had stood aside to let the resistance escape. He had been living quietly in the colony since the war ended, working in simple labor, asking nothing of anyone. I wanted to say goodbye, said. I am returning to says I can help with the Reformation. Looked at the commander. He saw no enemy in space, only a being who had learned a difficult truth and was trying to live by it. You are welcome here whenever you wish to return, said. I hope that I will, replied. I hope that someday and humans can be more than allies. I hope we can be friends. Extended his hand, looked at it, then grasped it in the way. Two beings from different worlds, former enemies, now joined in the project of building something better. We will be friends, said. Departed that night, boarding a ship bound for the... As his ship rose into the sky, thought about the future. The galaxy had been changed forever. The cycle of conquest had been broken. It would take generations to fully understand what that meant. But the future was open now. The future was free. Returned to the memorial site one last time before dawn. He placed his hand on its name and whispered a prayer that his friend would know, somehow, that his sacrifice had mattered, that it had changed everything. The sun rose over 442B, casting long shadows across the colony. Humans and aliens walked together through the streets. Children played without fear of oppression. The markets were open and free. Ships came and went not as instruments of conquest, but as carriers of trade and communication and peace. The price of freedom had been paid. It was a price measured in blood and tears and the lives of the best that humanity had to offer. But it was a price that had bought something worth having. A galaxy where freedom was possible. A universe where the future could be built on something other than conquest and oppression. Hayes had spent his entire life waiting for this moment. Now it was here. And as he watched the dawn break over the colony he had fought so hard to free, he understood that his greatest work was not behind him. It was ahead of him. Now came the harder task, building something worthy of the sacrifice, building a future that would justify the price that had been paid. He turned toward the colony, toward his daughter, toward the future, and he walked forward into the light. They buried him on 442B with full honors, stood at his grave, his arm around, and said nothing. There were no words good enough for the sacrifice had made. The price of freedom, thought again. It was paid in blood and tears and the lives of people you loved. But they were finally free. That night, as tried to sleep in his quarters, he thought about his wife. He thought about all the people who had died under rule. He thought about the 311 civilizations that had fallen before humanity. He thought about who had volunteered for a mission that would almost certainly kill him. The price of freedom, thought, it was a price measured in blood and tears and sacrifice, but some prices were worth paying. Tomorrow would decide if humanity and the galaxy would be free, or if they would simply trade one form of slavery for another. As dawn broke over 442B, the shuttles were being loaded with fighters. The war was about to begin. Then we break it now, he said quietly, no matter what it costs us. The shuttle carried them down through the atmosphere of 442B, heading toward the underground tunnels where the resistance waited. They had the codes. They had the knowledge. Now they had to use both. The real war was about to begin. What happens if we succeed? She asked quietly. Then we move to Phase 2, said. And what is Phase 2? Looked at his daughter, and for the first time that night, something like hope crossed his weathered face. We start a war that changes everything, he said.